So we are ready to start with the fireside chat, bridging vision and scale, unlocking financial inclusion for every woman. It gives me great pleasure to invite our esteemed anchor and the speakers onto the stage. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, Consulting Editor, Business Standard. He is the anchor of the fireside chat. Along with the esteemed speakers, I take the pleasure of requesting them all to please join us on stage. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sophie Certain, CEO, Consultative Group to Assist the Poor, Mr. Rama Mohan Rao Amara, Managing Director, State Bank of India, and Mr. Ravi Arora, Senior Vice President, Global Public Policy and Government Affairs, MasterCard. A very warm welcome to all of you. So we have shared the background and the construct of this chat. And meanwhile, I hand over the charge of the session to the anchor. It's over to you, Mr. Bandyopadhyay.
Good afternoon and welcome to this session. Yeah, we are running slightly late. Bridging vision and unlocking scale of financial inclusion for every woman. This would be probably fourth or fifth session on this subject in different language, women and banking, women and finance, women and entrepreneurship. I have been here for 2 days, so I think the audience is fairly familiar with the subject. Let me not explain more. And to cut down on time, let me call you short form, just Sophie, Ram, and Ravi. Is that okay? So that, we can save time on that. So let's start right from the beginning. Financial inclusion is one part, but on the other end is that entrepreneurship or the women's role. Just a few numbers. Niti Aayog data show women account for just 13.76% of entrepreneurs, contributing just 17% of GDP. What is the global average? 37%. So where are we? Going by International Labour Organization statistics, in 2022, it's pretty old, just 19.2% of Indian women participated in the workforce. Again, the same story. And finally, India ranks 57th out of 65 countries in female entrepreneurship progress and success. So my first thing is, why is so low ranking of when it comes to women and entrepreneurship in India? Is it the lack of access to finance or something more? Let's start with, Ravi, you start. Each of you will see from your perspective. Ravi and Sophie can give us a perspective from outsiders and Ram, insider.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and great to be here, and thanks to Access for having us on this panel today. And Tamalji, with you and Sophie, Ram, great to be part of this panel. Look, I think that overall, this topic that we're talking about in terms of vision, scale, unlocking financial inclusion, I think at MasterCard, and I'll come to maybe now or later talk a little bit more about how we are thinking about inclusion at MasterCard at length. But to your specific question around why India ranks low on women's financial inclusion based on some of the data points that you've shared, I think there are, what we have to take into account, I think in every country there are different norms, different societal norms that come into play. And I think that it's probably a factor of multiple social, economic, structural, different kind of factors that contribute to this gender gap in financial inclusion. There are barriers. It could stem from identity, although India has done a lot, and especially what we know in terms of the building blocks of the JAM Trinity model, the JAM Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, done a lot. But I think in terms of the access to credit, in terms of the some of the barriers that may exist, lack of land records, lack of collateral, means of, traditional means of collateral, those could be hindrances on some of this access to capital that we're talking about. So when we have to think about designing some of these products and solutions to broaden this access to credit, we have to then take into account and, the needs of women, on ground level, understand, what can be enablers to them, right? So I think that the, overall, the lot of the small businesses are also, they're looking for informal, they go to informal sources rather than formal sources, of that. So how do we migrate them from the informal to the formal sources? So I think these are all factors that contribute to maybe what is official data around, the low ranking that you're talking about. I think there is a lot of, means that maybe alternative means that people are going to, which doesn't get recorded as formal, means of access to credit. But our goal is how do we work with partners, with enablers to migrate that come into the formal financial system. I'll just stop there.
Let's ask the gentleman who represents banker for every Indian, State Bank of India, Rama, tell.
Yeah, I think I agree with Ravi. In terms of some of these structural issues that are there with women taking up more, evincing more entrepreneurship. I think access to finance, we have come a long way, thanks to PMJDY, PM Jan Dhan Yojana, and subsequently following it up with some micro overdraft kind of loans to them. Following it up with, again, I think the kind of UPI or the digital footprint, some of the banks, particularly banks like SBI, has started consuming this digital footprint and started underwriting small loans without even any collateral or anything. There is no financial statement to look at or anything. Just consuming the digital footprint also, we are able to underwrite a large volume of loans. Maybe for the audience, we have, it's a 18-month old program. We call it as a business rule engine based underwriting. We crossed 1 trillion rupees in terms of underwriting. It starts from a 10 lakh rupee loan to 5 crore rupees, where we are able to consume this digital footprint. Maybe if they are a formal enterprise, then obviously consuming the GSTN data or income tax kind of data, we are able to approve within 30 minutes. So coming back to the main point, whether access to finance is hindering the, I think the women becoming entrepreneurs, I don't fully agree, because we have come a long way. But at the same time, there is a need for some kind of ecosystem which focuses on women education, training the woman in the basic skills, and maybe some financial literacy, etc. So you require such kind of ecosystem. So finance, when it is embedded with such kind of ecosystem, then it will be more, I think, meaningful, and it will actually generate that interest among the ladies or the women to take up enterprises. One more thing, what we have done very proactively, while there are plethora of government-sponsored schemes mainly oriented towards women, as a commercial lender, commercial banker, we came out with a scheme called SBI Asmita, which is like a 10 lakh loan to 1 crore, where we will not insist on any collateral. We will only look at the interest of the entrepreneur. What is the kind of, at least a vague idea she has. So we do that kind of hand-holding. We have our own formal training institutes as well in terms of imparting the basic training. And if you find them coming out with some viable idea, then we are helping them with underwriting the loans up to 1 crore. So this is again, we have rolled out at the Government of India initiative. My last bit on this is like a beyond the finance. I think as a lender, as a banker, I think we need to customize our processes to suit the difficulties of women, particularly whether, I think we need to simplify the onboarding process. We need to simplify the digital journeys, particularly when they have mobility issues. In fact, we take the help of SHGs, NRLM kind of staff, etc., in terms of rendering a doorstep banking to the women entrepreneurs. So we felt like only when you create such a conducive ecosystem, it is possible that more and more women will start becoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Sophie, yours.
Maybe I'll be the diplomatic voice that say it's both. So it's certainly true that you need more than finance. So you really need access to markets, connectivity, skills, etc. But finance does, or the lack of access to finance definitely plays a key role. We have looked at all the evidence of quality that exists on this topic and produced an open space platform that's called the Impact Pathfinder, where we see from the evidence globally that indeed access to finance is directly related to women agency and decision-making authority. It's related to their resilience, so it increases their resilience and their ability to smooth shocks, basically, and recover. It's also related directly to entrepreneurship. So that's to your question. We see that when women have access to finance, they're more likely to open a business, to grow their business, to diversify, to recruit workforce, etc. And we also, there's economic gains, and we also see that they're more likely then to invest into education, nutritious food, health for their family, so there's social gains. So definitely finance plays a key role. But now to the story that Ravi and Ram, you were describing, India, I think, has not finished its financial inclusion journey. It is a gold standard, believe it or not, but really globally, the investment the government has made in digital public infrastructure, the opening of accounts for everyone, is a foundation that is amazingly powerful, but can be leveraged much more to benefit women and everyone with access to more products. And that's I think that's the connection here, which is that while there's been massive progress in account opening, to build resilience, entrepreneurship, etc., investment, you need access to more than that. You need access to credit, savings, insurance, and pension. And for that, some of the obstacles that you mentioned remain.
So we will hear you more, but just see, I mean, you don't have to respond because I've already discussed. Just one data point. The MSME space, we talk about always MSME and its contribution to economy and contribution to GDP and all. Only 20% of India's 61 million MSMEs are led by women, almost half of which operate in rural areas. Women led 5.26% of small and 2.67% of medium enterprises. So that's the story of women entrepreneurship. I want to react to anything on that, MSME? You said that you are customizing and you're also hand-holding, training them in that context.
I think just building on what all the three of us said earlier, I think some of the enterprises women start based on their necessity as a micro enterprise, but obviously sometimes they struggle to scale it up through a small scale industry or otherwise medium-sized industry. I think a lot of hand-holding is required here. Sometimes the capital support is also required. I think there is one particular scheme I will mention about what is called a Stand Up India, which is a scheme Government of India has come out with, where assistance up to 1 crore is given in terms of any woman entrepreneur. It can be a brownfield project or it can be a greenfield project. Any viable idea, if they're coming out with it, the assistance is provided. Similarly, I think if it is a very, very small ticket, first-time entrepreneur, they can start with a mudra. Several tranches are available in mudra now. Or otherwise, if somebody is like pursuing certain vocation, saloons or any such kind of thing, there are something like a new scheme called PM Viswakarma. So when I'm referring to these schemes, what I'm trying to say is, I think the biggest stakeholder, Government of India, is fully aware of the limitations where they need to customize the product or customize the scheme and also provide the growth capital or the seed capital that is needed to encourage women to take up or become entrepreneurs.
Well, I mean, these numbers are pretty depressing and all. So you want to say something on this?
Yeah, if I can just add to what Ram said, is I think very eloquently is, look, I think MSMEs are indeed the, I think all have pointed out, they're the backbone of every economy globally, right? I mean, and one of the largest job creators in the economy. And I think in India, of course, I think, again, tying it back to access to credit, for women-owned businesses, I think when we look at it in the perspective of where Viksit Bharat and what we want to achieve, I think that, kind of a blended, we call it like a blended tech and touch, when it comes to MSMEs, will help unlock additional 150 to 200 million jobs, when we focus on women and women-owned businesses and MSMEs. Now, when I look at it from the perspective of MSME, what is critical to them? They want to get paid right? They want an access to a marketplace, right? And they want to be able to pay, right, for services. I mean, at the very basic level, you want to pay and get paid, right? And you want to be plugged into supply chains, you want to be plugged into, commerce, you want to be able to grow your market, so on and so forth. So I think this is where, at least from MasterCard, when we think about it, when it comes to empowering women, when we are talking about, it's not just about access and inclusion, it is about usage, it's about, and not just that, it is about equipping them with the tools, and you brought up capacity building and other aspects of it. It is about, ensuring that they can be financially resilient, right? Because not just inclusion is important from our perspective, financial health of the small SME or women-owned entrepreneurs, etc. Their financial health in the longer term is more important, so that it makes them resilient to shocks in the system. So how do we then kind of do that for MSMEs? There are a variety of programs, products, solutions, services. Like at MasterCard, we have what we call as our MasterCard Strive India program, and which we do a lot of groundwork through a variety of partners on ground. We have already reached about 6 lakh women through those programs, through lots of partnerships. I can talk a little bit more about that as we come. But I just wanted to, kind of just weigh in that I think when we talk about MSMEs, it's important that we also focus, for us at least, on their financial health as much as access, but how do we drive usage and their health and resilience?
The numbers, what we discussed may not be very good or pretty depressing, but you see the progress is happening. I'm just referring to the economic survey of FY24. It talks about increasing participation of women. Rural India, I just see the female labor force participation rate, LFPR, in rural India. It's up 41.07% in FY24 from 23.3% FY18. And there are schemes like, say, one of them is PMJDY, which have facilitated the opening of millions of bank accounts, and women are playing a very, very critical role there and all. So, Sophie, PMJDY is one such scheme. There are many more, but this is the most successful and the largest one. So do you think that these are the largest vehicle to ensure that, or just see that the unlocking scale of financial inclusion for every woman, this kind of government-led schemes, are they the right vehicles for a country like India?
Yeah, so as I said, they were very important step forwards, and they were instrumental in opening accounts. They are not by far the destination, so India needs to continue its journey. For me, what we need to see at the heart of this conversation today is that the ability of the financial sector, public and private, to serve women is changing fundamentally because of data and AI. And we need to make sure that the India sector takes that into account. So at the moment, you have basically the SAGs and the microfinance industry that serves women in rural area, mostly with short-term loans, mostly for consumption, not exclusively. And then you have the banking sector that really serves high-income women, larger entrepreneurs. And you have really this missing middle. But this missing middle of women that graduate from the SAG, that are micro-entrepreneurs in their house, that are gig workers, they are credit-worthy. If only we could assess their credit-worthiness on the basis of everything they contribute to and they generate in terms of income. So traditional banking has looked at credit histories. In today's world, leveraging the programs of the government and the UPI, we can now leverage the digital data trails of these women. Many are informal, but they're active, they transact, they buy, they sell. Many earn income on different types of activities, even informal, in their house. Many are recipients of government programs. You heard that from Lyra Clapper, for instance, yesterday. All of this can be part of new alternative credit scores that should allow many more commercially oriented players to serve these women. And so I think the journey, the investment of the government was fundamental. Nobody should criticize that. India is out there with its success. But it cannot stop. It has to now serve these women. And I want to add the potential is immense. So the estimates that we have is that this could generate business for the industry with 250 billion of additional deposits, nearly 200 billion of additional lending. Because women, once you have the data and you analyze it, are proven to be, everywhere in the world, better borrowers typically than men. So their NPL, for those who are technical, their losses, non-reimbursement of loans is typically 40% lower than for men. They tend to save more, and they tend to be more loyal customers for financial institutions, so you can cross-sell much more products to them. So the business case, using the data to show the business case, to credit assess women and give them more products tailored to their cash flows is the next step in that journey.
Yeah. You want to add, Ravi, anything? Or I'll...
So look, I think based on I think some of the 2025 data around the PMJDY accounts, I think 550 million,
That's right,
of which
55.
55% is of women.
Yes.
So that shows, significant women participation, right, in this whole financial inclusion drive, which is phenomenal. So I think that to add to it is where I think we have to look at ways and means in which, we can, public sector, private sector, everybody coming together to say, we have a great platform. We have a great platform where, with UPI, with Aadhaar-linked eKYC, all of that, mobile banking, now, women in rural areas, have access, the ability to plug into, the financial ecosystem, right? So now, but what happens is still there is lack of trust, right? So I think it's important that for us to come in, especially, whether it is word of mouth or what you hear, what you see in the papers or on TV, et cetera, in terms of the fraud and the scams and things like that that take place, those are all deterrents for individuals. So, and especially when, you can't touch and feel your money to say, is it in the cloud? How do I make sure that it is safe and secure? So the trust is the underpinning of everything, when we talk about driving commerce, for women, and not for every entrepreneur, every individual as a consumer. So I think that the more we can bring, and that is what we aim to do, we bring in cybersecurity training, capacity building, helping understand. So this blended, tech and touch approach that I talked about, I think is important as we go to the last mile, because that is where, when you can help them to see, like I'll bring up some partners like we have with Harsh Darshak, so where they're training like they've trained their top 1,000 agents to now go and empower 5 lakh, women-owned businesses and agri-entrepreneurs, right? Now here is where a lot of people are not aware of all of the different government schemes that are available to them, because there is just lack of awareness. So, but through our MasterCard partnership with this Harsh Darshak program, we are now enabling them not just with digital skills and empowerment and to go there, but saying, look, this is how you can scale and grow your business by leveraging so many of the schemes. So yes, the PMJDY is there, but now there are so many other schemes that you have access to that we want to make sure that you are able to avail those services, right? So I think this is where that kind of, we as the private sector look for the right level of partnership. Similarly, we do with Access over here with the program called Mandi, where we are going and empowering agri entrepreneurs to link with farmer producer organization, with FPOs and saying, how do you get better access to credit? How do you get better access to pricing for your own produce in the marketplace? So those are the kind of things we need to do.
Ram, in SBI, do you have anything about, there's a number on gender, like in terms of accounts, how many men and how many women, or in terms of credit, how many men and how many women? Not volume, but number-wise, is there anything there?
Yeah, yeah.
I tell you the reason, because I was just going through the women's participation in the formal banking channel. I picked up 3 years between 2022 and 2024. It's post-COVID time and all. It says that 2022 public sector bank, nothing to do with State Bank of India, I'm talking about banking system, drop of 1.9 million women account holders, 2022. And then subsequently in 2023 and 24, it came back positive, but that particular year and all. Small finance banks have been showing a steady decline in new women borrowers under the Mudra scheme. And figures of loans given to women, again, same storytelling. So when do we actually convince the formal banking system to come and welcome women with open arms? They seem to have some reservations.
I think some part of the decline, what you mentioned in terms
Again,
of
I'm
certain
talking
number.
on behalf, not as State Bank of India, I'm talking about your
In
representing the
general.
entire banking system. Yeah.
In general, I think it may be more to do with the kind of issues they have seen in the portfolios post-COVID. So some of the organizations would have become more risk-averse slightly, which would have resulted in a kind of a decline in the number of, a kind of women they have financed. But I think, as Sophie has also said, it's time to leverage the data, because we have seen a kind of increased usage of PMJDY accounts, while all these accounts have actually started as just for receiving the DBT and for the women to use it for their consumption purposes. Over a period of time, it did inculcate the savings habit. In fact, the average balances in PMJDY account are of the order of 4,800 rupees, from 0 to 4,800. For the system as a whole, it is more than 2 lakh crores. So it is, I think, the savings habit is getting inculcated. And beyond the savings, I think the protections is that under Jan Suraksha schemes, it is being offered like a PMJJBY, PMSBY, and PMAPY, which is a micro pension. And very recently, I think we also want to talk about micro investment products for them. We want to inculcate that habit. So there is a mutual fund scheme with just 250 rupees, means like a $3 per month. That kind of very, very micro investment scheme was also launched. So I think there is no reluctance on the part of any bankers or anything. Maybe 1 or 2 years when there is a decline in the number is merely a function of the ecosystem at that time, or how the portfolio is behaving.
What would be the number? Say, for instance, like State Bank of India, you have about 550 million worth of account holders, right? Around that. What would be the ratio? Any idea?
I think if I talk about FI accounts, where we account for 30% of the system, that means you have around 50, so we have around 15 crore or 150 million FI accounts. Out of that, 56% are women.
Okay, okay, done. So we wanted to add something.
Can I just add something?
Yeah,
on
please,
this?
please.
Yeah. So as you mentioned and we discussed before, I think data is a key part of this. Data to show the business case, but also data to enable the banks to properly credit score women, tailor products. We talked about incentives as well, so incentives around, again, seeing the business case, but it could also be that your priority sector programs take a much more gender-informed form. But I think what I really want to add is that our experience globally is that for banks to really serve women, you need an intentional strategy that permeates throughout the institution. And we see that everywhere, meaning you need the board, the senior management, from the CEO down through all levels, all the way to the loan officer, to define an intention to serve women with objectives, targets, a monitoring process, responsibilities, accountability, and then the definition of the how. How are we going to tailor products? Who is going to be responsible to do that and serve women? How are going to be reaching them using digital and agents, etc. And we see that really being transformational. We've produced a book based on our experience in Mexico on that, a guide for private banks, industry banks, I should say, public and private, to really develop an intentional strategy for women. It's now been endorsed in Mexico by the regulator to really push the industry. And banks that have been serving women equally and really well across the world typically have those kinds of comprehensive approach, whether it's KBC in Kenya or Banca Mia in Colombia or Time Bank in South Africa. It's in their DNA because it came from the top and it was embedded.
Maybe you want to add?
Sure, thank you. Look, I think like CGAP have done an amazing amount of research, and I'm also reminded of Sophie, like the IFC, banking on women model that has shown, kind of a lot of strong results kind of globally, right? And CGAP's been a big part of that. And I think that women, by and large, makes a much safer bet in terms of the ability to pay and repay loans and so forth. And I think that this is where, earlier I've mentioned what we believe from a MasterCard perspective is working with partners for a women-centric design, will help to be able to get more women, into the ecosystem. And I think this is where one has to take into account flexibility, seasonality based on, sometimes the product, seasonality based on product sales, looking at alternative means of collateral, thin credit files, things that can help to bring more women into the fold will help us to drive more access to, credit to women, right? Because I think that for the first time, women borrowers, and I remember, I think in about 2-3 years ago, MasterCard in partnership with, by bringing together again with HDFC Bank along with DFS, et cetera, we had a $100 million line of credit, which was purely targeted at first-time borrowers, and especially had to be women-owned or women-led businesses. Right? So I think the more we, kind of drive and devise such kind of programs that bring, first-time borrowers with the ability by whether it is your sales history, alternative ways, alternative means of assessing their credit worthiness will all help, to help bring them into the digital fold.
You live in New York, right?
Yes.
Sophie, you are in Washington, so must be meeting very often. I mean, before coming here, you had a meeting and you discussed that you talk about MasterCard and you'll say CGAP and all, no?
I don't think, but we are good partners, you see. I think,
partnership.
Okay. We are very good partners because
on a more serious note, India experimented with a bank exclusively for women more than a decade back, Bharatiya Mahila Bank. But it was not successful. Actually, it got merged with State Bank of India 2017, 18, around that time, I think, yeah? So tell me this kind of experiments. Ajab, before that, can you get 2 microphones in the audience? Maybe we'll take a couple of questions after this. Is that okay? Anybody has any question here? If anybody has any question, we can take 1 or 2 questions after this, right? Tell me.
I can say State Bank is one of our largest partners too.
Okay.
Because, State Bank of India, for us, their reach and the scale that they bring is tremendous, and we are really grateful for their partnership.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming back to that, so that kind of Bharatiya Mahila Bank did not succeed. So that exclusive women-centric or run by women for women, that kind of banks, financial institution, can it help? Anybody,
maybe I can pick up in as much as that Bharatiya Mahila Bank got merged in SBI. From that perspective, I do have my view around that. Yeah. I feel like rather than having a woman-centric institution, considering the mainstream banking, which is spread all over the place, physically as well as through alternate channels, it is worthwhile to have the gender sensitivity embedded as part of the mainstream banking. In fact, after the merger of Bharati Mahila Bank with SBI, we brought out a lot of changes. Those woman-centric initiatives we factored in terms of our processes, product design, etc. So we feel like when we have such kind of reach, technology, etc., it's better to leverage the mainstream banking, but have a woman-oriented policies, etc., which I talked in the beginning also, simplified onboarding journey, digital channels, then working with some of the intermediaries like SHGs, etc., to provide again some services to the women entrepreneurs, etc. I think you need to customize. That is what I feel.
No special women. You
I
don't
don't
need
think
that.
they
Sophie,
will.
you have
Well, I
you
was-
have any different opinion?
Yes and no. I was going to say it's not one or the other. It's both.
You are always diplomatic.
Of course.
Huh?
you know, no, but what I was going to say is that, as I mentioned, for a financial institution to serve women properly, they need to be intentional about it. And that's what these women-only banks do. So they do that very well. But it cannot just stop there. I fully agree with what you said. It has to be in the mainstream banking industry
is there
too.
any, globally,
and it is possible.
Globally, is there any geography? I think Ghana experimented it. Is there any geography where it succeeded?
In the mainstream banking sector? Absolutely. So the institution that I mentioned earlier are that, I'll take another one, it's a slightly lower income country, but in Bolivia, there's an institution that's called Banco FIE, which is mainstream banks, but that has taken a very intentional women-first policy with a strategy, targets, recruiting women at every level in management and at all level of leadership in the institution, trained staff, designed, collected data, analyzed data, designed product for women, and now serves women extremely well. KCB, as I mentioned, in Kenya, Time Bank in South Africa, Bank Amia in Colombia, and so on and so forth. Yes, it is possible.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah. No, I think the only thing, Tamalji, I would say is that, like, for, MasterCard, I know we have a very strong partnership with Mandeshi Foundation, with the Rural Women Chamber of Commerce. But I think to your, point, and all of that have helped, obviously, help women entrepreneurs, unlock, credit for them, so forth, right? Access to capital. But I think that, any initiative that can drive scale is what's needed, right? Scale. Sure. Because, for a country like ours in India, 1.4 billion, so forth, right? You need scale and reach there. That is where I think banks like State Bank of India, the kind of reach you have, goes a long way. And I think that, so it's a combination of policies. It's not just about having more dedicated banks, but I think the policies around, what India have done with the Jan Dhan account, simplified KYC, digitalization, all these kind of, policy, you could levers are needed to, kind of continue to drive more women into the, it's not just about a dedicated
These banks also build trust in a different way. So you mentioned trust before as being important. Sometimes women feel more comfortable, and so they can be, a transition bank also that build that trust before they can access bigger banks for bigger products.
Absolutely. No, both Mandeshi and yet one more, that Sri Mahila Seva Sahakari Bank in Ahmedabad, both of them success stories, but they're in a particular geography, they're not a national bank. So we'll come back. We have about 15 minutes left, but before that, is any question anybody has? Or too tired, 2 days? I don't think anybody has any questions, so yeah. No? Oh, just introduce yourself, madam, and only question, no comment. Very brief, quickly.
Yes.
And
Hi,
to
everyone.
whom you are asking this also.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Duana from Microsafe Consulting. We work a lot with business correspondent agents on ground who are the major last mile for financial inclusion. They have a lot of women customers as their major segments. What we've realized is that business sustainability and the scale has become a major problem for them particularly. What do you think can be the change that can sustain their business model in the future? And where do we look at 5 years down the line with respect to the business BC model?
Thank you. Thanks. So, who do you want to? Yeah, please.
So this is a very important question because these agents play a critical role in terms of the trust, but also bringing some of the skills, the digital financial business skills to client. And women often prefer to be served by women agents, but you're right, they're not always sufficiently scaled to be profitable. So we've done a lot of work on shared agent networks and produced a lot of reports that show that banks and financial institutions and microfinance institutions need to agree to share these agents, so allow them to sell products from different players so that they can increase their income stream, basically. That's one of the solutions that is being contemplated in many countries.
I can add a bit. While initially all these BC models have started with just rendering the basic banking, and obviously with the proliferation or otherwise customers migrating to alternate channels, there is a possibility like the footfall and the volume of business might be coming down for the BCs. I think we are now giving a lot of non-financial services also we are giving to them. It can be simple as a KYC updation. We are actually taking their services for KYC updation because the entire PMJDY accounts the first accounts were opened more than 10 years back. They are all due for KYC update, KYC renewal. Similarly, we are also using their services for some document collection, sourcing of small ticket loans. So several activities, of course, with the necessary checks and balances, we are trying to outsource to them. So I think we look at the viability, obviously, and we also try to benchmark the minimum fixed amount of pay what they get, whether it at least corresponds to the minimum wages kind. At least these considerations are always there.
Thanks. Yeah. Anybody else? No? Okay. Let's get back. Yeah, one more. Where is it? Please. Sir, quickly. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Prabhat. One quick statement and question. A statement is, we say, what gets measured gets done. And here a lot of data points that Tamal has been pointing out shows that we are measuring things, but somehow still the gap remains. So why is that, and what can be done about it? Thank you.
The gap remains despite all the data showing that. That's what you said, right? You want to?
I mean, I think we need a mindset shift where we need to stop seeing women as women in SAG group holding hands to get finance, and we need to see that in India there's a lot of very entrepreneurial, successful, studied, and other groups of women that also can access finance. And so we need to change perceptions that SAG and microfinance are the solution to women's access to finance. And we need to make sure that everyone in the financial industry understands that they have a role to play and that it could be in their interest.
Well, you kept on harping on SHG and microfinance and all. As we speak, nothing secret about it. Everybody knows that microfinance is going through a bad patch, and it happens periodically. So do you think that going beyond SHG and GLG and microfinance, there are other avenues apart from formal banking, etc., to be explored for a greater participation of women?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not criticizing SAG or MFIs, right? They play a critical role. They're extremely important for onboarding, for first access to finance. What I'm saying is that they're not sufficient and that you need to graduate women from them. You're right, the end destination is to mainstream in the banking sector. In between, yes, there are many other options, especially with NBFIs and BFCs, fintechs, payment societies, and the different kinds of non-banks or digital banks. I really like what Ravi, you said, which is that we need a touch and tech combination to serve women. So microfinance have been, and SAG are really on the touch side. You need to progressively bring a tech side because you need to leverage data if you want to reach scale. And so that's where these NBFCs and the fintechs can really be an intermediary solution. But I think also thinking about the question of the gentleman over there, breaking in a way the mindset shift and moving from a documentation, credit history-based assessment of women to an alternative source of data, assessment of women, etc., will require what we call in jargon blended finance, will require some subsidies, some support from the government. And so you also need to think about all the guarantee, the credit enhancement programs that you have, and make sure that they target this missile middle, and that they scale, and that they lead to graduation, that they lead to a transformation of the business that benefits from them, so that they continue serving women in a sustainable manner, even if the guarantee was removed.
Yeah, I want to add, yeah, quickly, just 1 minute each. Please, Ram, you want to add something?
Just I would like to add
because
to what
you know, being a banker, in fact,
Absolutely,
you guys
absolutely.
close the tap. You're not giving, again, not State Bank of India, I'm talking about
Yeah.
banking sector, not giving money to microfinance, and some of them are dying, the smaller ones, stretcher case and all. So then how can you actually continue to say that for women, microfinance is the vehicle?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. In fact, I began my career in
very quickly, sir.
Very quickly. I began my career in the bank when actually this SHG bank linkage program started. So I am witness to the huge success it has and the millions of people it has catered to. And of course, MFI correspondingly has started with joint lending program. While it has actually exposed them to the nuances of running small-scale enterprises or micro-enterprises, obviously you need to spot the talent in them, and now you need to help them on an individual basis. We as State Bank of India, in collaboration with the Ministry of Rural Development, has come out with a scheme called Swayam Siddha. What this scheme is, we provide assistance up to 5 lakh rupees, which is like a 0.5 million rupees, without asking for project report. There is no project report, there is no invoices, there are no quotations, there are no financial statements, purely based on their track record, purely based on the idea they have and the viability which we judge. Based on that, we have come out with the scheme. So slowly it is gaining popularity. So I think this is the way in which you have to graduate them from a group-based lending to individual entrepreneur kind.
Yeah. Ravi, you wanted to say something?
No, I think the only thing is women, they don't lack the confidence in the business. They're very, very confident. What they need is fair market access systems and such, to help them grow. And I think this is, the example that you've given, Ram and Sophie, I think go to reiterate that, because I think it's a combination of access to trusted networks, access to digital enablement, and obviously the financial products and services. I think that power of those three can really help unlock
Sophie, can you tell us that we are running? We have about 6 minutes left, and quickly there are many more questions. Actually, there are some questions from audience, but unfortunately, you will not be able to take it. You are welcome to grab them and over tea ask them this question. So quickly, you kept on talking about repeatedly about the digitization, how India is doing a phenomenal story. But I was going through a couple of sessions here and all. I heard people are talking about, no, despite that, women's access to finance is not growing because their access to mobile even is much less restricted, and particularly smart mobile. If family has one, it's meant for men, not for women, a smartphone and all. So how do you overcome that?
I think that's a very fair point. We really need to promote access to connectivity, phone, not necessarily smartphone, but preferably, yes, including for women. And so that needs to be a policy that needs to be fostered. But what I was going to say as I was listening to the conversation is really that ultimately what you want is to deepen the financial sector so that it really serves the productive use of everyone in India, and it contributes to your India 2047 growth strategy. And that should be the vision. But connectivity is the foundation, for sure.
And the broader, a broad question is this, like PMJDY you discussed, and many PMJDY we discussed and all, these are great success stories, but they're all driven by government. So how do you see, particularly Sophie and Ravi, how do you see that the role of government versus private sector in this space? Like for enabling greater access of women into the financial sector, the role of government vis-a-vis private sector. Just 1 minute each.
Yeah. So, I want to, I'm kind of reminded by something a colleague of mine who runs our Center for Inclusive Growth kind of mentioned, is that, look, with with government, participation, you go wide, right? With NGOs and that, you have the ability to go deep, right? Private sector brings innovation and the ability to go fast and to market. But when you need to go far, you have to bring a combination of all of these together, right? So you have to bring public, private, government, together in order to drive scale and impact. So that is really what is needed, and I think and this is where I think, I know from MasterCard's perspective, through the program that we have, we partner with, whether it is in different ministries and whether it is on the cyber trust side or whether it is with DFS, different programs that we are doing. So, those public-private partnerships are important as an underpinning of trust in the ecosystem, and these partnerships can bring innovation at scale, right? And that is really what is needed for us.
Sophie, anything to add?
In 1 minute, I fully agree with what he said. So for me, the role of the public sector is to be the catalyst of the industry's development, public or private. And for that, the public sector needs to provide first and foremost, maybe the vision, the objectives, the target, in a way, the collective shared understanding that this has to happen. But then secondly, the foundational infrastructure, the enabling policies, the data, the monitoring and accountability system, and maybe I'm forgetting something else, but basically everything that's going to enable the incentives, enable the sector to move forward with that.
Okay.
And this is, if I can just add only very quickly, it's
10
like
seconds.
Our program, MasterCard Strive India, has, takes all of these different partnerships into account to empower, like we had a target of 5 lakh women entrepreneurs, we are at 6 lakhs already. To unlock 900 crores of capital, we've kind of exceeded those targets. But it only comes about by the right partners to do capacity building, to look at how do you empower, whether it's digital, cyber. There's so many aspects to it when we look at the entrepreneur environment.
Thanks. We have just about 1 minute, 10 seconds left. One last thing, maybe 30 seconds that you can say. So you don't have to ring the bell. We'll close in time. Maybe we'll exceed by 1 minute, not more than that. So just tell me, each of you in this cause, what can you, not an individual, your entity, your organization can contribute, which is not in public domain. What you are doing, don't repeat that. But what you plan to do, probably a news break, if there's any important media, they will write that MasterCard plans this or CGAP plans this. Just tell us, Sophie.
So
for
we are actually
women's greater access to finance in India, is there anything that your organization is planning to ensure? Yeah.
So yes, we're actually working on that. We've been working on this for more than a year now. We've set up basically a coalition of stakeholders from the public, private, and non-profit sectors that are really convinced about this in India. We've set up a steering committee and advisory board. We're convening them all tomorrow. We have already identified with them the key enabling changes in policies, regulations, or infrastructure that are needed. And we're going to try to have progress on the data front, on the digital front, and on the asset accumulation front, and then come back with, hopefully, a handful of measures.
So just a couple of words is that I think from inclusion, our focus is on resilience and health, right? So as we continue on this journey in India, in other markets around the world, for us, it is about, economic empowerment and about financial health. Because the road, we have to think of it beyond just access and usage, but longer-term sustainability. And what we are working on with all programs is all driven towards inclusiveness and health.
Sure. Ram, again, you can announce something which SBI is planning. We don't know, but let people know.
We are setting up what is called a SME COE, Center of Excellence, where idea is to look at what do SME units require in terms of policy support, etc., so that we can engage in that kind of stakeholder discussions, and of course, looking at the digitization and product design. But one takeaway from this session is perhaps even to embed the woman-centric initiative also as part of that COE. This is at least one takeaway for me.
Okay, thank you. So, bridging vision and unlocking scale of financial inclusion for every woman in India, that brings us into this discussion. No, we have not been able to unlock everything in this session, but as you have heard them, things are positive, we are in the right direction. And Sophie repeatedly emphasized on digitization, access to data, and the newer products. And of course, the two the lady and the gentleman from overseas, how they look at India and what's happening. And of course, India's largest bank, which is about more than 20% of the banking industry, and one of the top, the only Indian bank among the top 50 global banks and all. So all of them, they have shown, they have reiterated their commitment to the cause. With that, we come to the end. If you like it, give them a big hand. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks to all the speakers for sharing their experiences and insights in this very engaging discussion. And a special word of thanks to our esteemed anchor, Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay. We have a token for you, a memento for each of the speakers. We'll request the team to hand it over as you leave the stage.